Well, it's great to be here, and it's a great privilege. What my talk will be today is about the force of destiny that I live, and how obstacles can become an opportunity. This is the town I came from. I lived here for 2 decades. A town near Venice, Italy, a river town, surrounded by the Alps and the Adriatic Sea. A town filled with many artisans. My ancestors were woodworkers, and harnessing the power of the river was their specialty. A town seasoned by many centuries of adversities, but defenseless against a political system that, with the intent to guide and control our thinking. That process began at a very early age. Here I am, I'm 6 years old. And this is the first uniform, a fascist uniform for the young. We didn't have a knife or a gun yet, but this was a ritual of every Saturday morning that led to the age of insanity. In 1940, with World War II, this guy got us into the war. He had dreams of an imperial Rome, and he wound up hanging by his feet in some gas station in Milan. In 1943, Italy abdicated the war, went to the side of the Allies. And this was a daily occurrence over our town. These are B-52 American planes going to Germany to say hello to the other guy. To escort these bombers, there were the P-51 Mustang fighter plane. I brought this in because it will play a part later on in my story. 1945, the war was over, but not the suffering. We cannot make ends meet. So my family decided to leave. It was 1952. We moved to Canada, Windsor, Ontario. The skills that my father, my brother, and I had were paying off, but not for me, because I contracted a terrible disease called tuberculosis of the bone. It put me in a body cast for 18 months. All I could do is move my arms, and the biggest challenge was retaining my sanity. There was a time where I could not recognize myself in the mirror. And when I told that to the nurse, they removed that mirror. I had no TV, and it was tough, but I don't know what happened. I found myself carving a profile of Lincoln off a penny on a bar of soap. That got my interest in sculpting and sort of filled up my time. I went to clay, and this is my first sculpture. A local artist saw it and suggested potentially that I could make a living at sculpting cars. Well, it was not till 1956 when I could look for work, and the work was only available in the United States. For Italians to come to the United States then, it was a 10-year waiting list. So here we go, another obstacle. But I discovered that there was a first preference for someone to come in earlier than 10 years. I applied for that and got it due to my skills in sculpting. So finally now I am in the United States. I have no skills to sculpt cars. So I went to Ford, and they hired me on the basis I could learn. In the early 60s, Ford Motor Company Design Center in Dearborn, Michigan, had 1,000 people. Inside the design center, there were several studios for each car line. There was a door that had no name on it, and that's where the Mustang was to be born. Inside that door, we had a full-size clay with 6 clay modelers, sculptors, designers, engineers, crisscross, many disciplines. And the sculptor was at the center of it all. He had to take engineering information and look at two-dimensional sketch and imagine the third dimension. Looking to get lines on the body size to go with the roof line, the placement of the grille, how big the grille, where would the headlights be, what's the size of the bumper, trying to create a concert of forms and shapes that can be seen from any angle so that you could have a pleasure of that by looking at it from every point. And that's not easy when you're constricted by engineering information. For example, the wheelbase, the placement of engine, headroom, visibility, all those constraints. So we work, and we use hot clay. And sometimes I think the skin off my blister wearing better than the clay. And here, we worked and worked, looking to hear that magical word. Stop, we got it, clean it up and paint it. Here's the original model. 1962, August 16, 62, was presented in white. Contrary to the rules, because there were other studios involved competing with this, and the rule was everybody painted red. But our studio director didn't have really a lot of political power. He says, let's paint it white so they can see. That's fine, And so, and the winner then was our model. But the work did not end here. There was a lot of work to be done to bring this car to manufacturing. At the top level of the company, they had to invest in this. And it was after the fiasco of the ESO, so they were a bit scary to do it, but it was because of a special man, the effort of a special man, that this happened. And that's why Lee Iacocca is known as the father of the Mustang. Now the name. There's your P-51 fighter plane. The plane that I used to see when I was a young child flying over the skies. Little did I know that one day I would meet that plane again. And that's how they initially, the name for the Mustang was chosen, but then they decided to use the horse as the emblem, Mustang symbolizing adventure, and that's how we got the name. Here we are at the World's Fair, and who would say, how would I think that 50 years before that, as we rolled the clay model into the sunlight of the courtyard, that I would be standing here today and say, we're celebrating 50 years of continuous production of the Mustang. That's quite a feat. There are many, many other projects I was involved. This is the Pro 4, the most aerodynamic, drivable vehicle. The 4GT, Ferrari wanted to sell Ferrari, but I wanted to have control. So Ford didn't go for it. And he said, we're going to show you that we can beat you. And so we made this model, went into a carbon fiber and so on, went to Le Mans, and we won for 4 years consecutively, beating all the Ferraris. So this is another project. Now here's a picture of a video I did explaining my idea and how we could do rapid prototyping. I was a sculptor, but also I like to cross the line, whatever I felt was something, opportunity. What you see in here is an idea of creating a model from CAD data by using an ultraviolet light and a liquid polymer. The attorneys at Ford, they dragged their feet. Unfortunately, someone in California patented. When I met the one that got the patent, he said, if you had put this in even 3 months before, you would have gotten the patent. Today, it's a global technology. It's called stereolithography, and it's used even in medical field. You may be familiar with it. Called stereolithography, three-dimensional photo printing. This has revolutionized the way we make models. We can send kids around the world, and anyone can create a model and have in his hands to evaluate and so on. So that's what's called stereolithography. And when I was working on it, I didn't have a name, so I call it liquid to solid. I'm going to mention two world-renowned designers I work with. You may have heard of the Tucker car, very revolutionary car. It failed because the big company were afraid of it, and they made it so that it died. Alex Tremulous was the designer, and we did a project for the Seattle World Fair 1962. Working with him was quite a trip. He could excite a village. Alex Tremulous. And Sid Mead. You may have heard of Blade Runner, Alien, Tron. He's world-renowned, and when he was at Ford, I worked with him to explore shapes that could influence the designer for production vehicles. But he never gave me a sketch. He just talked to me. And he created an image by words and gestures. So quite exciting way to do it. Okay, and after 31 years, Ford Motor Company, I retired. I still had a lot of energy. I was 56. And I wanted to try many ideas that I could not really use as fast as I wanted to in a corporate setting. So I formed Concepts International. I soon discovered that without the advantage of the Ford oval over my head, doors were not opening that easy. So what do? Use an obstacle to surmount. So I decided to look at how things were done and see how else could it be done to shorten the time, increase the quality, decrease cost. And I had an opportunity to bid for the first new edition of 2000 Dodge Ram for Jeep and truck. They gave me the opportunity to bid. Now, I bid against several large, multi-million-dollar facilities. I had nothing. That's all I had is an idea. And I got the job. I got the job on the basis that time, first of all, is very crucial because wind tunnel model needs to be made very fast to evaluate engine cooling and so on, so that we can progress fast in production. The competition quoted about 3 months to do it, to create a model. I did it in 3.5 weeks. For the past 20 years, after 31 years of Ford, I never stopped building models as far back as Korea, Europe, and here, you may have heard of the Crossfire. This was intended to prove how fast can we go from a sketch to manufacturing. And we did this in world record. So, in recounting my story, I hope you've seen something of value for your life. And I like to say that when I met an obstacle, I looked at it as an opportunity to do something else. And when I look back at all the muddy roads I had to cross, I think of the time that I was laying on my back, entrapped in a body cast. And all I had is a penny and a bar of soap. And what I did with that bar of soap changed my life. Thank you.